we made lots of friends, and we sure had an awful lot of conversation about renovations and various different opinions and lots of discussions. It was most rewarding day indeed.
Really good. It was great to get another perspective on how these things play out on this kind of setting on an island, and I suppose it was great to hear questions from the locals here on the island as well, and to hear their perspective of what they think the challenges would be, but also I think they learned a lot from the presentations that were made as well, and kind of learned things that maybe they wouldn't have known had it not happened. So it was great, and it was great to see so many locals there as well.
I think it was an amazing session today. Huge turnout of people, huge interest. Next steps for Inishturk is a follow-on in terms of retrofit programs. We need to bring either a one-stop shop on board or a project coordinator for the community energy grants. There's a lot of homeowners interested in looking at the retrofit journey. So definitely in terms of homeowners, a retrofit clinic in September, but also running in parallel with that, there was huge interest today in the possibility of Inishturk becoming energy independent, installing a 100 kilowatt wind turbine. So we're going to ask SEAI to fund a feasibility study for the island here to see, is it viable, is it feasible, is there a location, can it be done? And that may work to the community's favour when they're negotiating with networks, ESB networks, to try and maybe install this turbine. So there'll be two projects now running in parallel for the next number of months.
Okay. It was a very informative day, and the plan itself will enable people to be more conscious of the climate and the changes they can make within their homes for a more comfortable living. Cost savings. So yeah, overall I feel it was a very good day overall. What do you think some of these places? We made it. There is, firstly, for the people that lives here, obviously a reduction in CO2 would be absolutely brilliant. But I think with the movement that there is now and the climate change and people being all about climate action, I think it would be actually a very attractive, even from a tourism point of view, it would be an additional attraction for Inishturk that we could relatively become carbon neutral by 2029.
There's a lot of different kind of opportunities here. Obviously they were talking about how they're not connected to the grid. It could be seen as actually a good opportunity for them in the future, but then yeah, I think they have a lot of challenges to face with how to get contractors out here and like how to make that feasible financially and stuff like that. So I suppose they have to worry about that, whereas on the mainland it's just not a worry to these kind of projects. So I think I think they do face significant challenges with that side of it. Yeah.
Houses as part of our eco tour today, and we'd like to go before the rain comes, and I think it's actually just starting, but it's going to get worse as the day progresses. So as soon as you're all available, could you hoist sail and we'll head for those houses. Thank you.
We looked at two community-owned passive houses on Inishturk. They're community-owned, they're holiday homes, and they're let out week by week, so that people come on Saturday and check out the following Saturday. They were built last year by the big red barn, steel frame, and air-to-water heat pumps. Heating. There's no solar panels on them yet, but maybe they'll be added at a future date.
It's telling us that they have an air-to-water Mitsubishi air-to-water heat pump, and she says they set the temperature at 14 degrees, and it never comes on. They have so much heat gain from these windows that
at this time of year.
No, pretty much all year round.
Oh really?
She says other than for domestic hot water.
Yeah.
You know, they hardly ever use it. They have, as you can see, the two holes there in the wall. That's intake and extract of heat recovery ventilation, which again is a very important thing.
Yeah, great. You know, it makes me even more dissatisfied with my own house.
Incidentally, the structure, it's a steel frame. I believe, bolted onto a concrete.
No timber.
No timber. No.
Why did they make that decision?
I've no idea. Apparently, it's a design that some companies come up with.
Yeah.
But what you have is the central wall. It's just plasterboard rendered both sides, heavy rendered both sides, and then just 4-inch insulation inside and out on top of that. That's the actual structure. According to Mary Helena, obviously we haven't seen the drawings, but
There's insulation outside.
there's 4 inches of insulation. What you're looking at there is 4
So it's
inches.
rendered.
It's rendered insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you just have a plasterboard, which is separately rendered,
Right.
both sides. So
Yeah.
the forms, I don't know, something like probably about what
There's a
about?
cavity. Is there?
No, there's no cavity. No,
Okay.
it's all insulation.
Yeah.
And then you have another 100 mil of insulation, again rendered inside.
Right.
That's all. It sounds like a very light structure. Obviously, I mean the actual walls themselves. But
Yeah.
I'm assured that it's not.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I just like the look of these houses. They're very well finished, and it's great to think that they're zero energy. Yeah, fantastic.
But I was out here last year and we walked through the house. I was doing work in the centre and I come back one evening and walked through the house. So it was only a shell of a house at the time. But they're very impressive today when I see them today, because I'd be interested in passive house. I'd love to have a passive house, but it's just the whole concept of being passive and using very little energy. What I suppose the first thing I noticed about them was I would have thought there should be PV panels on them to supplement the electricity. I was surprised that there wasn't PV panels on them, because heating wise it's so easy to heat them, but if they had PV on it they could generate enough electricity to run the house as well, you know. So yeah, I'd be surprised, but it can be retrofitted, you know.
Well, you do have, there's an obligation for renewables on new builds. So it's just a question of when you schedule them. But yeah, it
So
would
they
need
can
them.
actually they can be attached later on. They don't have to be
Yeah,
done.
they can be retrofitted even to. Oh no, do you know what it is actually? It's that the roof system in that is because it's all kind of contained, and with the insulation on it. As far as I know, that roof system doesn't accommodate solar panels on the roof. It's not like a traditional house where you can bolt them into rafters. That they don't have that facility on them. So that roofing material isn't tiling. It's another material. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's another kind of a modern material, and then there's composite of some sort, and then there's like the insulation is in the roof without rafters. You didn't put rafters on and then put the insulation, so that's why you've nothing really to attach the solar panels to. So if they were going to put solar panels in there, they'd have to put them at the back, ground mount them. That's what I remember that now when Mary Lena told me that.
They couldn't do it now.
And is that the case now with most new builds? Are they going to be that way that
No,
you can't
it's
put?
just that was a prefabricated style of building. Whatever, like Red Barn or Red Barn, I think they're called. Something like that. And they basically make it in prefabricated sibs, and then they put it together. And so because everything, like the construction of the walls and the roof, they're all in one panels. It doesn't have the same raftering that you would have with joists in a timber build where you can attach heavy things to, right? So that's why you can't put them on the roof.
So they would have been pre-made.
As far as I know, they were pre-made.
Transported to the island.
As far as I know, that is the case. Yes. Yes, because these are designed and constructed off-site. They were off-island, but then put together here. It was just an unusual system, or a different system, which is a great idea, but as you say, it has that issue. So you're then talking about ground mounting, but that's not a problem for nearly everybody else. That isn't an issue. Everybody else with an old house has rafters that you can attach your solar panels to.
Yeah, if you're talking renovating.
Renovations.
Then you're fine.
Is not a problem at all.
Just wondering if they do extensions. You know, whether you could get an extension kit for it.
I don't know. Possibly. I mean, we did a building in Dublin, and it was steel frame construction with insulated panels as the infills. But then there was also an insulation like within again, so there was no cold bridging with the steel, and it's effectively passive, but it was steel construction. And that was constructed in Meath, in the workshop in Meath, transported on as complete units, and then delivered and then just assembled in where was it? Dartry, in Milltown. So it's a new thing, it's a good thing, yeah. And it was like, it cost, the building has about, what's the square meterage of it? It's about maybe 150 square meters, and it cost us 250 to 350 grand, which is, that's extremely good. Well, that's all in. That's all with the civils and everything done in it. So that's the way, the prefabrication is the way to go. That, but you can prefabricate out of timber now as well. So that'll probably be even better. But that's a different thing.
I think renovation is probably key, because I suppose it's about using what we already have first, and then if there's supply needed, you build more. But in my opinion, I think you should renovate definitely what you already have and see what measures you can take, because at the end of the day, if you ever go to sell that house, it's not going to sell unless it's not going to sell for good money unless it's kind of up to standards as well. So it's looking at it from that point of view as well, I think. But yeah, that'd be my opinion.
I'd say that, to be honest, you would be better off renovating. There's already an awful lot of let's say embodied carbon in your house as it is. The stonework is concrete work, okay? So you really want to, unless it's an extreme situation, you want to retain that as much as possible and just insulate that building that you have. Fine. You know, it becomes cost ineffective if you have to excavate the flooring and put in a whole new concrete floor underneath. And yeah, but you will still achieve an A2 standard without doing that. You'll probably renovate your house up to an A2 standard. Let's say if it's a standard detached house for about maybe €60,000. You won't get a passive house for €60,000 from scratch.
No. Okay.
So yeah, it works from the point of economics, but also there is already an awful lot of energy embodied in the house that you already have.
Yeah.
So retain that energy, as it were, rather than having to do a whole new, expend more carbon on producing more building materials to get a house from new. If you're building a new house on a site, absolutely. If your house was derelict, then I could see a derelict cottage and you take it down and you put a house instead. But if it's a perfectly serviceable house that you're living in, well, it's not. It's obviously very functional, and therefore, yeah, just renovate that house, and it would be cost effective. It would be much less carbon intensive, because the building materials that go into insulation aren't very carbon intensive anyway. Mostly they are fibrous, and they come with very low carbon costs. So yeah, it's definitely work to do. Most of the work is done by hand. So you're not employing expensive digging equipment or anything like that. No diesel expenditure either. So you actually you get the job done very energy intensively, maximising the resources you already have, and it'll be much cheaper than building a new house.
I believe that when we have some more information from the amount of electricity that's being generated here at the club, and we can compare it to this time last year and what we are saving as a result of having the PV installation up there, I think we can showcase that to the community, and it will highlight the benefit of having solar PV installed on their homes on probably a lesser scale than here at the community centre, because their consumption will be slightly lesser. I'll just give you a small little brief overview of the Inishturk SEC. Inishturk Community Club CLG was registered with Sustainable Energy Communities programme in 2017, and the focus was mainly developing an energy master plan for the island. At the time, we set up a steering committee with the vision to carry the project forward and establish a working relationship with our SEC mentor Orla and the overall community. The main objective of completing the energy master plan was to create greater awareness and understanding within the community of energy consumption, reliance on thermal fuels, the environmental impact and the cost associated with bringing said fuels onto the island and all that goes with it. I would also like to thank Orla Dr. Orla Nieswigner for her part during the process of developing the plan. Thanks, Orla, you've been fantastic in the whole process. I would also like to thank Cormac Walsh and Lou O'Brien from Energy Cooperatives Ireland, who are the successful tenderers in developing the Inishturk SEC plan. Fantastic work and a great plan to work from going forward. I would like to thank the SAI for funding the EMP. They funded to a tune of €10,000, and to Lorna and Laura Dixon inside in the council who did all the administration work and the tendering process and all that goes with it. So thank you very much, both girls, Lorna and Laura. And lastly, I'd like to thank the community for their participation. The community participation was key for the BEAR assessments on the commercial buildings and the houses and all of that. So thanks to everyone who willingly took part, and I hope you make use of the roadmap that has been generated from the I suppose the research and the audits to use it to your best going forward.
Thanks, Mary Helena. Delighted to be here. Thanks everybody for turning out. My presentation's very short. You've been through a lot already. There's a huge amount of information, so apologies for all the slides. It's very hard to follow Darren Malloy. I don't know if you know Darren Malloy on Inishmore. He's been a community energy champion for years and years and years. We've admired his work and looked up to him for years, so it's fantastic just to get his insights and advice. He's amazing. So first of all, Inishturk Island, well done for completing your energy master plan. It's been an amazing journey. Well done to Mary Helena. She's just been fantastic for the whole journey through this, so I'm really, really happy to be here today launching it. Thanks a million to Lou and Cormac. Lou's gone, is he? Oh, sorry. An amazing presentation, Lou. You always do a brilliant, brilliant job in the Energy Master Plan, so thanks so much. Really, really happy. So I'm sure you all know who SEAI are. We work on behalf of SEAI as energy consultants, so we're not directly employed by SEAI. We're subcontracted to deliver their Sustainable Energy Community Programme. County Mayo is quite active with SECs at the moment. We have 42 in the county. As of today, we now have 10 Energy Master Plans completed. We have 5 more in progress at the moment. So County Mayo is one of the more active counties within Ireland. So SEAI are the state agency tasked with trying to help us to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, trying to help us to decarbonise, and they're there to give us as much help as we can. SEAI back in 2015 had a staff of about 50, they're now up to 260 permanent staff, annual budget of about €700 million. So the government's really trying to help the agency, help us to deliver those carbon reductions. So they work with everybody, government, homeowners, businesses, communities, so much help for communities at the moment. It's amazing. So why are we doing this? I don't have to talk about climate change anymore. It's here, we're seeing the impacts every day, it's in the news. It really is part of what we have to solve moving forward. It's one of the biggest crises that humanity is facing at the moment. Back in 2021, the government developed a new law, the Low Carbon Development Act. Out of that law came our Climate Action Plan in 2021. That Climate Action Plan gave us a load of actions that we need to do to deliver our 51% carbon emissions by 2030, net zero by 2050. Following Lou's presentation, you can see the different stages of trying to reduce those emissions down. So for Ireland Inc. to reduce all of our carbon emissions, about 61 million tonnes at the moment, down by 51% by 2030, it's really, really challenging. So part of those actions are directly related to energy consumption. 500,000 houses retrofitted to a BE or a B2 or higher. Hugely challenging. We retrofitted 4,000 houses last year to a B2 energy rating. 600,000 heat pump installations, of which 400,000, to be installed in existing houses. Again, hugely challenging. 4,500 heat pumps last year. The targets are really, really challenging. 50% of houses in Ireland currently have a BE or rating of a D or lower, so you can see the challenges. And to date, SEAI have supported about 500,000 houses, but up to now they've been very shallow retrofits. Attic insulation, cavity insulation. Now with this target of 500,000 houses, those journeys have to be a lot deeper. We're moving towards deeper retrofits. So Lou gave a brilliant overview of the houses here in Inishturk, but why are we concentrating on these houses? Houses account for a quarter of all of the energy consumption in Ireland, huge chunk. 80% of your home energy bills is how you heat your rooms, how you heat your water. The other 20% is your electricity use. So we love talking about renewable electricity in Ireland. We talk about our wind turbines and our solar panels all the time, but we need to start looking at renewable heat. because the heat and transport is always a massive part of our bills. So we're really good at renewable electricity. We need to be brilliant at renewable heat and renewable transport now moving forward. So where do you lose all that lovely heat? So we're all in the same situation. You turn on your heating, half an hour later you turn off your heating, an hour later your house is cold again. Where is it all going from? So 30% of your energy loss is through your roof. So at a minimum, please try and insulate your attics. SEAI have €1,500 grant available towards insulating your attics. It can cost nothing if that cost covers the cost, or it could cost a few €100. There really is brilliant grants available at the moment. Air infiltration 10%, which is all your drafts and trying draft proofing, 30% through your walls. Again, a significant amount of heat loss. So try and look at cavity insulation, try and look at internal dry lining, try and look at your external wall insulations. Doors and windows only 10%. I always find this fascinating. Doors and windows are generally the most expensive part of a retrofit. If you're investing €20,000 replacing all of your single glazed doors and windows, 10% efficiency gains. You really need to think about that. Floors 20%, huge amount through your floors, but again, floors can be a very expensive part of an overall retrofit. So you really need to get your information together and make really good decisions based on what you have. Why are we doing this? Benefits. There's no question anymore. A comfortable house is a house is way more comfortable when you retrofit and make it more energy efficient. Nicer air quality, everything about an energy efficient house is far nicer. Savings, as Lou pointed out earlier on, we saw significant savings every time there was an upgrade measure done in your house. Environmental, again, your carbon footprint on your energy efficient house is far lower, as Lou pointed out in his plan. And then the value, we're definitely seeing an increase in the value of homes as you increase towards that B2 level. So very quickly, 3 steps to your home energy upgrade: assess, insulate, add renewables. Assessment always has to be the first step. If you don't know your current building energy rating, it's very difficult to try and even imagine what that journey is going to look like. SEAI have a full register of all of your BEO assessors. Is there a BEO assessor on the island? No. But they'll have to come in. Okay, so there is access to assessors. It would be brilliant if there was a number of homeowners coming together to do them all in one go and make it much easier for an assessor coming out. So definitely assessment is the first step. As part of that BEO assessment, they give you an uplift roadmap. So they give a full list of all of the measures that you need to do to get your house from where it is now up to a B2 or higher to an A2. So there really is a very step-by-step process of how to do it, what's involved, how much it's going to cost, what grant is available, and what's your payback and all those measures. So they're really trying to make it easy for homeowners to figure out where they are now and what they need to do to make their houses more energy efficient. As Lou alluded to earlier, insulation is always the first step. Energy efficiency is always your first fuel. The best energy is the energy that you don't use. Insulate, insulate, insulate. It's always the way to do it. I have leaflets down here with all of SEAI's grant measures, and the grant measures are pretty generous at the moment. As I said earlier, up to €1,500 for attic insulation, €8,000 for external wall insulation. After you're as efficient as you can, then we start looking at the energy that you must use, that we try and make that as clean as possible. So we're making your emissions lower and lower in the house. So we start looking at heat pump systems, solar PV, everything is solar PV at the moment. It's like the golden child, it's amazing. But there's never been a better time to install solar PV. Technology is incredible. Grants are there, €2,400, and then VAT has been reduced to 0 VAT from earlier on this year. So there's never been a better time. Payback at the moment for a system with no batteries, 4 to 6 years, with a battery 8 to 10 years, panels guaranteed for 30 years. Never been a better time to install solar PV. Solar thermal, which are the tubular panels that heat your hot water, they're designed to supply about half of your hot water needs, and grants of up to €1,200 for those. Heat pumps. If your house is suitable for a heat pump, and your first level of assessment will tell you if your house is suitable for a heat pump, €6,500 in grants. Now, very quickly, SEAI have 3 very definite but very different routes to access their grant programme at the moment. The first one is the free energy upgrade, which is the warmer home scheme. This has been around since 2012, and this is a brilliant scheme. If you're eligible for this scheme, and it's through certain social welfare payments, the most common one I see is the fuel allowance. If anybody here has a fuel allowance, please come and talk to me afterwards. I've application forms with me. The free energy upgrade is 100% funded by SEAI. From when you do your application, you send it into SEAI. They will do everything else after that. They process it, they send out a BEO assessor. The BEO assessor will deem what's needed on the house. SEAI will appoint a contractor. The contractor will do the works, and then SEAI will sign it off at the end with a final BEO. So you as the homeowner effectively have to do nothing. It's 100% paid for, 100% managed by SEAI. The difficulty with it at the moment is we've an 18-month waiting list following COVID. The good news about that is that SEAI recently went back out to tender. We currently have 17 warmer home contractors. Following this new tendering process, we'll have 50 contractors on that framework. So Jim, it's really good news. We're hoping that it's going to go from 18 months, much less for the warmer home scheme, because it's a really brilliant scheme for people. If you're not eligible for the warmer home scheme, I'm sure you've all heard of the one-stop shop service. The one-stop shop has been put in place by the government and SEAI to deliver that target. Remember the 500,000 houses to a B2? The one-stop shop is designed to deliver that target. When this was announced in April 2022, we didn't have one-stop shop. We now have 16 one-stop shops in Ireland. We've our first one in Mayo since the 1st of July, based in Crossmolina, so it's fantastic to actually have one physically in the West, Churchfield Home Services. The one-stop shop service is brilliant. They're designed to do everything for you as a homeowner. From the time you ring them up and do your home energy assessment, so the home energy assessment is that first assessment phase. It's a little bit more than a BER. It's a BER plus a technical assessment for a heat pump. And the reason is because of those 600,000 heat pumps that we need. Following that assessment, not every house is going to be suitable for a heat pump, but it will bring you on a journey to get to a B2. And the big part about this programme, you must go to a B2 in one go. SEAI will pay up to 50% grant aid to get you there, so there's a huge amount of finance available. But if you're starting at a very low BER of a G, it could be quite a significant uplift to get to a B2. It could be 60, 80, 100,000 euro. And you really have to make a very clear decision, like, can you afford it? Is it the right time for me? Or what can I do instead? So if you go through the home energy assessments part of this with the one-stop shop, SEAI will give you a grant of 350 euro. The HEAs, the home energy assessments, are somewhere around 900 euro at the moment. We're recommending for people to shop around. The 16 one-stop shops are private companies. We have no control over prices. We really recommend for homeowners to shop around, get yourselves informed, and really get as much information as you can. If you get to the end of the home energy assessment phase and you look at the figures and look at the uplift journey and you think, I can't do it, it's not the right time for me. There's no green loans available in Ireland yet, as Jim keeps giving out to me, so there's no way that I'm going to afford it. SEAI have kept the individual energy upgrades open, and this is where we're seeing probably most of the activity at the moment. There's still a huge amount of money available. The grant elements are still very similar to the one-stop shop levels, but the big difference is that there's no help. You effectively become the project manager for the home energy upgrades. They're partially funded by SEAI, as I've said. So as part of that process, you as the homeowner become the project manager. You have to go and find your SEAI registered contractors. You have to get 2 to 4 quotes. You have to agree a price with your contractor. You have to apply to SEAI for the grant, get your grant approved, oversee the works with your contractor, pay your contractor, and then get that money back from SEAI, your grant part back from SEAI. So the process definitely puts a little bit more of work on you as the homeowner, but we're seeing a huge amount of activity in this area at the moment. So what's available through each of the programs? Surprise, surprise, the one-stop shop has absolutely all elements included. And again, that is the government's policy measure to deliver that target of 500,000 houses. There's a lot available in the warmer home scheme, which is fantastic. Floor insulation not included, solar hot water, solar PV not included. Everything else is part of the free energy upgrade. And in the individual energy upgrades, there's a few not included, but there's still enough there to have a lot of measures completed in your house. Home energy assessment grant is not included, project management is not included. You effectively are the project manager. Floor insulation, windows and doors have never been included as part of the individual energy upgrades. They are included as the one-stop shops, which is absolutely fantastic. And then ventilation not included. So there is a bit missing, but there's still enough there to help you on your journey. I'm very happy to answer questions later on, and thank you so much for listening. One more person to go. Come on, Jim.
I'd like to welcome Rosario Tiernan, Mary Fergus, Jim Campbell and Richard Mannion and their extended group from the Newsburg Locality Climate Action Group as well. I'd like to welcome Seamus O'Malley, familiar face around here that does all our electrics and everything for us, and also the installer of our solar PV system on the roof of the club here. Joining us a little later will be Dara Malloy from Inishturk, and Dara has a big involvement in the climate action on Inishmore, and will deliver a deep insight to what the work they're carrying out on Inishmore at the moment.
COVID put a bit of a damper on it for the best part of a couple of years, but we are making progress. And what can I say for yourselves? Only I wish you the very, very best of luck. I'll be talking to you later on about the way we've been going about it and what we've been doing. I think everything that I would want to say has been said already. Anyway, I'd just like to tell you, those of you who are from the island, that we formed a climate action group in what we call Lewisburg locality. We started off with an SEC in Lewisburg and Killeen, just the mainland if you like. The council then had a competition a couple of years ago for decarbonised zones, and some tree planters and biodiversity people contacted us and asked us if we joined with them to enter this competition, and we did that, and the decarbonised committee, we've been working together as a group, and we brought other people on board over the last couple of years, and we now have our energy group, which is the SEC basically, is part of it. And there's 3 of our members, myself and a couple of my colleagues from the energy group are here today. We came to talk to you about solar metal, but you've probably heard an awful lot about it already. Then we have the biodiversity people who are planting trees around we've a few plantations done in the last couple of years, and we have what we call a circular economy group, where we've kind of a free swap area for things that you don't need. People might be looking for something, and people might have stuff they want to get rid of, and they have a WhatsApp group, and it's quite big. There's 300 people I think involved in it at the moment. It's been hugely successful. Then we have a Grow Your Own group as well, where we're promoting and encouraging and working together on sustainable food production in the area. Anyway, when we set up the decarbonised zone group, we got someone from Clare Island to join us, but we didn't manage to get anyone from Inishturk, and we're hoping that Inishturk will join up with us and provide. We have a board of, I think, 6 or 7 members, and then we have an additional 4 or 5 others who are members, but they're not directly on the board of this. We set up a limited company about a year ago, just so we could receive funds and have proper kind of corporate governance, and we're getting money in. We recently won a nice project from the European Union, where we're doing a social study on renovations of all things, and Lewisburg locality we're selected as the winner of the Western European competition to carry out this study. It's a 12-month study where we're trying to develop knowledge and in the community on renovations, the kind of stuff we've been talking about here earlier on. So this has been a very important part of our operation, if you like, and we're actually considering this as an eco tour, because we have to do these eco tours as part of this 12-month project that we have with the European community, or they call it the European Shared Green Deal. Anyway, I kind of came to talk about the solar metal, and it was one of the activities we started there a few months ago, and the idea, we got it from a crowd in Clare. The idea was to, which was spoken about earlier, about getting a group of people together so you could get the economy of scale, particularly relevant obviously to the island here, anyway, this thing has been worked quite successfully in Clare, and we've done 2 groups now. The first one is 11 premises, and we have the second group of 10 premises just about finished this week, and we've got about 6 or 7, I think we've 7 people lined up for the next. So in all, We've already, I think, 140 kilowatts of solar panel installed, and we've another, I think, about 60, I think, that are kind of lined up, so that we will by, well, when Seamus comes back from his holidays, hopefully, we should be able to reach up to 200 kilowatts, which is not bad. And the solar PV is very good. I mean, speaking from experience, I've got one myself, and I'm very, very pleased with the outcome. I'll just tell you a little bit about them. And work this thing. Pardon? I know, it's okay. I can do it. Yeah. Anyway, but this is, I've told you that over what we call it. We call ourselves Climate Action Louisburg Locality, and the acronym is CALL, so the kind of the idea is you can call us and we'll sort out your problems. What we've been doing mainly is, trying to get the word out to people about the grants that are available. And Mayo County Council have a great grant for doors and windows. If they're old doors and windows, like single glazed or wooden framed or that kind of stuff, they have a terrific grant. Again, it's means tested, and I think it's only for people over 66 years of age. But it's a terrific. They pay up to 95%, up to 8,000, a maximum of 8,000. But they pay up to 95% of the cost, so a maximum of 8,000. And I've availed of it myself to great effect. I got triple glazed windows and that, so it's helped to really improve my own situation. Incidentally, one of our groups I didn't mention, transport is a big problem on the mainland over there in Louisburg. Transport uses up about 50% of the energy that we're using in the area. And but it's very, very difficult to deal with it. So we've separated it from the energy, and we call it sustainable mobility now. We have a separate group trying to look after it. I think Rosario here is in charge of that. Now, I want to keep going on. Yeah, anyway, obviously what we're trying to do is to get the CO2 down, like what everybody else is talking about. Then, okay, the things I was going to talk about. The main thing I want to talk about is this picture here. It's just to tell you what the solar thing is all about. And number one there is the solar panels on the roof, and they produce direct current. Each panel will produce anything from about 350 up to the standard panel is now doing about 420 if you get the dear ones. And there are bigger panels that will do 560, I think, that we've installed some of those bigger ones if it suits the roof. Seamus, correct me whenever you need to.
You're on holidays.
The next thing is, as you see the little line there, the DC comes down into number 2, which is an inverter, and that's an electrical box. It's not a very big thing. We put it on the wall, and that'll convert the DC into the AC that's normally used in the house. And now that then goes on into your fuse box. What is it? Yeah, is that 4, the fuse box? The AC goes into the fuse box, which is number 4. That's where your electricity, you see your electricity coming in from the pole there, into the meter box at 5. That's coming in from outside. This is the ESB coming in. That goes into your fuse box, but your inverter feeds into the fuse box as well. So, then from the fuse box, if you're producing as much as you need, that goes into the house, the television set, and whatever else you're using in the house, and into your water tank. If you produce more than you need, it will go back out to the grid. So any time that you're producing more that you're using in the house goes back out to the grid. Now, the other thing to note is that we have item 3 there, which is when it's coming in to your inverter, if you're using more than you're producing, in the first instance, this thing inverter will send it back into a battery if you put in a battery, instead of sending it to the grid. And we're very, very strong in favour of batteries. Because, as I think Dara talked earlier about it, he explained that, you know, you can use it at night instead of having to be buying it at big money. You can use your own stuff that you've made during the day. Now, when you send it back out to the grid, they don't pay it as much. They don't turn the meter back, which they should do. They only pay about half what they charge you for what's coming the other way. I have some facts and figures here, my own figures I've used to demonstrate. And just one small thing. Say you're making more than you need, and your battery is full, and you're still making more than you need. You can also get a little gizmo called a hot water diverter, and that'll put the energy into your hot water tank. So you can save energy as hot water as well as in the battery. So that's an option that you can take up, and a lot of people go for it because it's another method of storing. By the way, if an electric car, of course, you can store all you can make and more in an electric car. But anyway, there's just some pictures. There's a typical roof mounted. These are our own. This is Rosari's. It's a ground mounted thing. She didn't want to put it on the roof. You can put them on a carport as well. These pictures here just show, the first one here is a good day. It's the 31st of July. I don't know if it's Rosari's production. It is Rosari's production. You can see that kind of a green mountain there. And that's actually what's being produced. And the red line is showing, obviously at night time, coming in from 0 hours. You're buying in from the grid, whatever you're using at night.
What's the thing with wind generation there,
Well, I tried to get a wind generator here for my own house. I wanted something between 6 and 10 kilowatts. The cheapest are from China, but I gave up. It was going to be far too difficult, and I'd have needed somebody knowledgeable on this side to erect it for me. And it was just far too complicated. So I'm not going to get a wind turbine for my house now at the moment, unless somebody comes up in Ireland with something that's much less complicated to install and that gives me a good guarantee as well. That's one thing I wanted. In terms of getting wind turbines here on the islands of Arran, we've been trying to do that since we founded our co-op way back in 2012, and we still haven't achieved it. All sorts of problems with it, and we've gone from launching, a turbine up to 3 megawatts. We're now down to one that would be probably 650 kilowatts because the ESB have basically told us we won't be able to export more than that on the cable that's available at the moment. So it's a very hard struggle. It's a 50-50 chance at the moment whether we'll ever get a turbine on the Aran Islands because there's a lot of planning problems, as you know probably from your own island, from Inishturk. We have SACs here, we've scenic amenities. We have a site on Inishman, and the people of Inishman in general are very positively disposed towards it. They had 3 turbines on that island before, and they were removed. So they have experience, and they're very favourably disposed. So that's not really the issue. The issue is going to be planning, probably, more than anything else.
Cool. Thanks very much, Dara. So we're very grateful for you to give us those insights. It required like major kind of like behavioural changes that you couldn't live the way that you used to live, or did it just all of a sudden your house was warmer?
Well, we built our house in a number of stages. We were self-building. And the house sort of grew as my family grew. We added bits to it and knocked down bits off it. So it's a bit of a jigsaw sort of house. But from the start, we never put in fireplaces, and we never planned using fossil fuels of any kind. So we put in storage heaters. And then more recently, we put in heat pump and PV panels, and we further insulated the house from what we had done at the beginning. We'd only put in a few inches of insulation in the ceiling. We had no attic. In the ceiling, we had, I think, 4 inches of insulation, and we increased that to 12. And that's made a huge difference too to the efficiency of the place. You know, and especially if you get the attic or the ceiling done, that's where most of the heat loss is. So we're still working on it. It's still an ongoing project of how to you know, make the best use, for example, of the PV electricity. Our next step is to get in another 2 kilowatts. We have already got 2 kilowatts of photovoltaic, but no battery storage. So when we couldn't use electricity as it was being generated, it went out onto the grid. And although we've signed up to get paid for that, we still haven't received any payments yet for that. But of course, the best way to use your electricity that's generated from your PV is on your house, not out onto the grid. So our next step is to get another 2 kilowatts of PV, so we have 4 in total, and also get 5 kilowatt hours of battery storage, which we can add to over time. And that means we'll get at least 5 kilowatt hours of energy that we can use at night if it's been a sunny day and the batteries are full. So we're looking forward to that new development.
Brilliant, brilliant. And
by the way, just one more thing there, Lou. In terms of our house, we found, and you won't hear this from the SEI or contractors, the best way to heat your home is to have plenty of windows or a glass conservatory facing the sun. So we discovered that. We put a glass conservatory facing west when we built the house first, and we were surprised at the amount of heat that was generated in the evening when the sun was over that side. So we then decided we'd put another conservatory on the east side of the house, and so we now have more or less, you know, the place is being heated through the conservatories either to the east or to the west most of the day, and the heat is amazing, and that doesn't cost a penny. But it's amazing, and we have double doors to open and close and windows to open and close in order to control it a bit. But we find it absolutely fantastic. So I'd certainly recommend that as step 1, where you get totally free heating from the sun if you have windows in the right place, or preferably a conservatory.
Cool, very interesting.
Can I ask a question, Dan? Yeah. Darragh, can I ask a question? Jim Campbell here from Duisburg.
Okay.
Did you have, you were talking initially about stone buildings and external insulation. Were there any issues with condensation or problems with water? Did you have to do any special treatment of the stone? You know, I'm told that the stone needs to breathe and you can't close it in. And if you don't, then it will tend to create condensation. Were there any issues like that?
Well, the drilling of the holes in the walls is supposed to allow ventilation in the home, in the rooms where the hole is dug. So that does help the air to keep flowing. We certainly didn't have any worse dampness in the house after we got it insulated on the outside. But as far as I know, the outside insulation has a gap, an air gap between itself and the wall. So there is room for the wall to breathe outside. But it's made a big difference to the comfort of the house inside. We have dampness in the house anyway. Parts of the building are 300 years old, and you know, it's always going to be a problem. It's not dampness from condensation, it's dampness coming up from the floor, probably, or coming up from the base of the walls. So it's definitely an ongoing issue for us, but it hasn't got any worse due to the external wall insulation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Can you talk to us a little bit about your EV experience? Did you find, how did that work out for you? Did you find it was a viable efficiency measure?
Yeah, we've had the EV now, I think, for 8 years, and it's fantastic. We have no complaints at all. We have nitrate electricity here, so we just plug it in. Whenever we park it in front of the house, we have a timer that switches on at about 11:30 at night, and it starts charging then when it's on nitrate, and it'll fill the batteries for as long as it needs to fill them, and certainly, and then stop charging it. It's still charging by, I think, 7:30 in the morning. It'll switch off anyway. So that's our timer set just to charge at night rate. So it's a very old electric car, 2012, a Renault. Its capacity when we got it first was only 120 kilometres, and since then it's gone down to about half that, a bit more than half that, 65 kilometres, maybe 70, and that varies according to the winter or summer. So you get more. Get more in the summer and less in the winter. I think it's last right. Yeah. Yes. But 60 kilometres for us in a day is usually fine, because the island is only, what, 15, 16 kilometres long. And if we run down to the shops and back, that's only about 5 or 6 kilometres. So even if we do a few runs in the day, it's very rarely do we need to worry about it. And then it recharges that night. So it's perfect for the house is suddenly warm instead of cold. It used to always be much colder inside than outside, no matter what the temperature was outside, because the stone walls kept it cold. And now it's very, very cozy. So we're certainly very thankful for the retrofit that happened. Just a few years ago now.
Yes. And have you found out that was it difficult to get contractors to the island, and did that increase the costs of things, or were you able to keep it semi-mainland prices?
Okay, well, just to stick to that particular house is run by myself and a few others, but we run it through a registered company which is registered as a charity, and we qualified for a grant for that house. So if there's any buildings like that up in Inishturk, that'd be a great way to go, because we got a 50% grant for the whole thing. So that was excellent. But also at the time, so this is going back probably to 2016 or 2017. We were running better energy community schemes at the time. So the one contractor did lots of different jobs on the island. And that also helps a lot. Once you have the contractor, then he's going to do everything, the one contractor. That's a better way to work on islands. We've learned that over the years, that trying to get one-off jobs done on a house and bring a contractor in from the mainland, they cherry pick the easiest jobs to do and the ones that give a better return for them. And certainly islands are not attractive places for contractors because there's extra costs. They've nowhere to store their stuff. It costs money to bring their stuff over. The workers have to leave to get the last boat home. All sorts of things make it awkward for island people to get jobs done. So by far the best way is to form a metal, as we call it here, bring a whole lot of houses together that want the same job done, and then you more easily find a contractor and you get a better price.
To see there's a huge number of people here, and as a proportion of the population, that's very impressive. I'll go through the master plan. There are a lot of figures in it, okay? But I'll try and summarise the figures as we go, so that it doesn't become too bamboozly and you just go, what's that about? The messages aren't that complicated from the end, but I do want to at least give you a flavour of the background work, the engine that's behind this, so that you can see what the product is actually going and the process is going to be like. So first of all, every engagement by a community requires an awful lot of people being involved, and of course we have to thank Mary Lena for all the amazing work that she did. She facilitated me coming over here to do some scoping work when the building work was at completion stage, or just at completion stage, on the houses down below. And I know that there was guests to be arriving in about 2 or 3 days after, after I was there. But Mary Lena was very generous and took time out with Ken, took time out to talk to me and show me around and put me straight on anything that I was maybe missing, and making sure that I captured as much as possible. Of course, I'd like to thank Bernard as well for the help, the information he gave about the generators and the system on the island. Orla as well, of course, because the support of the SCC program is essential. This wouldn't be happening without them. We also have Mayo County Council. I have Laura here. Sorry, Lorna.
No, she was the big.
Very good. So Laura is a go-to person in the county council. I would have to say now, we have a lot of work. We work in a lot of communities throughout the country, and you are blessed with Mayo County Council. It is probably the most forward-thinking council for sustainability in the country, and that in my work that I go, because I have a couple of, well, politically I would be going around and talking to people as well and saying to them, look, if you really wanted to achieve sustainability in your council area, look at Mayo County Council, look at their futures programme, look at their climate action offices. They are really the leaders of it. So you are blessed with Mayo as such a responsive council. Or certain councils, not a million miles away, they find it hard to progress. Okay. Of course, the church, the school, and yourselves were also instrumental in helping us complete our work. We require information in order to produce our what we call a baseline study, which is basically what's the energy use of the island. And we can't do that without the cooperation and time that people give us to give us the information. So that's really, really critical. Of course, we do have to thank our energy assessors, Owen, not Sean. I'm always making that. Oh, Sean is in Galway. I'm sorry, my mistake. Owen from Tuiva, and then Ivan Sproul, who did the non-domestic assessments, providing effectively the material then that we were able to build on. So the overall aims of a master plan is to focus on energy efficiency and energy and then energy independence. But efficiencies are the key, and we keep emphasising them. It's the most important element of achieving sustainability, is making the best of what you already have. Okay. After that, yes, of course, there is opportunities to produce energy locally from wind or from PV. We know what the wind is like. We know that it's strong. You decide. It's up to you. I'm just giving you the figures here, and it's up to the community to decide what the appetite there is for this. But certainly, PV is one that it would be very clearly, we can demonstrate it in the plan, very clearly will have huge benefits. But it's reducing your energy consumption first. So we have to develop an energy efficiency blueprint on the buildings. When you see our figures, you go, oh well, that's where our energy is going. It's often in forgotten areas. We don't forget it when we pay our bills, because that's where our money goes, is towards our energy. But it's really important. So the community designs and co-creates an energy master plan. I'm only giving my assessment of what I've been told. So these are things that you will take on or not take on, and you will tweak and you will adjust to your own appetites. So we do energy use data collection. We just collect all the information we have. We identify the saving opportunities, and then we come up with this thing called the REW, which is a registry of opportunities, which basically says, okay, what's feasible and what's not feasible? What can you do? What's possible? The opportunities for individual homeowners, for the small businesses, and for community organisations. And also then we discuss collective community projects which are possible. Sometimes you can have a big impact by coming together, and you would be very familiar that anybody who lives on an island would be very familiar with the power of the community coming together and creating your own projects. This building itself is a testament to that, you know. So, what are your energy sources? Well, they come from the ESB generators. We're not connected to the grid here, okay? So all of the electricity that's produced, that's consumed in this island, is produced on this island, which makes you very unusual. But it does give you great opportunities as well. There's home heating oil comes in, there's gas, there's coal, and there's diesel. Oh, that should have been there with the ESB generators. So that's the station there, you know it very well. It's the lifeblood of this community. It's essential that you have them there. Otherwise, well, we all saw it for about an hour and a half where we were in the dark. We can't live without it, so we have to have it. So at the moment, that's what's being provided. And also then, of course, the ferry boat comes in. Now, what we did was we looked at 7 homes, okay? So you'll notice that we haven't said anybody's name, so you don't have to be worried about it, unless you're very close to each other and you know each other's NPRN numbers. Which is possible. Holy God, 55, that's Mary Helena. Anyway, so we looked at these homes, and 7 out of a proportion, I think that might be the next slide, out of proportion is quite a lot, but you can see where's the big spend, or where's the big percentage. It's all in your heating oil. for your homes. It's all in heating oil, which is very standard now. That's very standard. You're nowhere near a gas grid. It's going to be that. You don't have turf cutting, so it's got, you know, other parts of Mayo you would, but no, not here. So it's going to be a heating oil. Small bit of gas comes in the bottles, and then the electricity is also used, right? So we looked at, this is a bit boring, but I have to say it. We looked at, there are 28 dwellings on Inishturk, 7 of them are holiday homes. So 21 of them are permanently occupied. Our energy audits, out of this, we did 7, so it's an amazing coverage. 33% of the homes in this study were surveyed for energy use. So this is a good picture. Now the more boring stuff, yeah, we couldn't do all of the normal stuff that you could do on an energy survey. We look at the brilliant service that the statistics office gives you. So we had to have a couple of workarounds, and that's what the workaround was. It's in the energy master plan document. The methodology and all the science is in there. But just to say that we had to do a couple of workarounds, work on proportions. But the net result was this. We looked at the energy source at the baseline period when we collected the price. Those prices they're no longer the same. But you have to start with you have to set a start date, and that's what the prices were. And so, as you can see, a lot of money is spent on energy, 185 grand. Now, most of that, as you can see, is on it's imported. Now, it's all imported insofar as the diesel that powers the ESB generators are imported. Is imported, but let's just say it's locally produced, that power. But this is like, that's where your money is going, and this is what the carbon is producing. So, if you wanted to know, remember the number: 411,338 kilograms of carbon. I don't know about you, but I don't carry carbon around in my pocket that often. I don't know how much it weighs and what it's like. So what I always try and do is try and picture that. What that would be the equivalent of if you wanted to offset that amount of carbon. A mature conifer tree, because mature ones are the best ones. Mature conifer trees they basically take in 14 kilograms of carbon a year, a single tree. So if you want to offset, because the small ones don't take up as much, the big ones are better. So if that's 29,000 trees you need to plant, have them. It's the best will in the world. The geography of Inishturk is not going to really facilitate that. So you really have to cut down on your carbon if you want to achieve some kind of balance of sustainability. So that's what this is about, finding a way to cut down on that carbon. So your energy balance is in terms of who's using it and what's it for. A massive 57% is residential heat. Then there's residential electricity of 13%, which you can't mess about with. That's your fridges and your computers and your lights. That's got to be electricity. So you're not going to mess about with that. But there's the community sector, which embodies also heat and electricity. Whatever. The community sector takes up 13%, which is quite a lot, you know. The fisheries, which is a key industry here, takes up a fair bit. That's the diesel that powers the boats. That's where it goes. And the agriculture just takes out very little. As you can see, it's only 1%. And your transport then is about 2%, because you're not driving a huge amount, you know. We left out ferries. Yeah, we left out ferries. We're not asked to look at ferries. If I was to include the ferries, this whole thing would be ferries. Okay? The community doesn't control or own the ferries. So it's a moot point. If I was to do this study with the ferry company, then we'd be having a different conversation. It is achievable. You can see here, you'll see from some of the recommendations, decarbonising your ferries, the ferry service is achievable, and it's achievable today. But it's not up for the community to decide. That's the ferry company itself. That's another conversation you could have with them. But we're going to look at what we can achieve ourselves in terms of money. The figures are funny in terms of they're all jumbly. In terms of the money again, it's not surprising. The money is spent on what you expect it to be spent. The electricity has a slightly higher proportion because electricity is expensive, specifically now. Okay, but this is obvious that more or less, okay, electricity has a higher carbon intensity. In other words, it takes more carbon to produce electricity if you're burning diesel, right, than home heating oil. Okay. So it has a higher intensity, but that's your total over the whole island. That's a cracking amount, and you can probably, if you're really quick, and there's a young chap over there, I'd say his maths is probably good enough at this, he could work out what that is. Now, we didn't include, by the way, the 300 kilograms of emissions from the sheep, because they can't help themselves, okay? But we did include the emissions from, and we do love them, but we didn't include that, but we did include the diesel that goes into it, the standard figures for the diesel. But that is 631,000 kilograms, so there's one little mature comfort tree. I told you that already, and that's what it is. It's 45,000, so now we're really serious. That's like crazy. That's the whole island is in trees, which would be nice, but it'd be nice to be able to live here too. So, this is my quote, okay? And it's a nice one that individual behaviour creates the foundation for action, okay? Aligning your day-to-day behaviours, in other words, what you do in your day-to-day, okay, can result in greatest community action. So it's actually down to the person themselves, you know. What you choose to do yourself will have a huge impact. But if you're doing it in the knowledge that you're members of a community, and one person does one thing and offers an example for other people to follow, well, that can have a very, very serious effect, you know, and it can achieve an enormous amount. It's no use us thinking about the global problem. The global problem is just duck the wreck your head. Don't think about it. What you can think about is your own problem, what you can do, and you can have individually have a big impact for yourself. And then in your members of a community, that multiplies out and your whole community can do it. So that's what we're trying to achieve, trying to get on to, is to this community action. So direct behaviour measures, stuff you can do right now, most of it costing no money. Reduce your costs, change your energy provider. Straight off. If you want to save money, almost certainly you could save money by changing your energy supplier. No matter who your energy supplier is, I'm not comparing one with the other. I'm just saying if you change your energy supplier, you're going to save some money. Consume less electricity and bottled gas and more oil to heat your home and water. Okay? Because oil is actually, although it's not great, it's a lot better than just buying grid electricity or buying bottled gas. Okay? Although electricity is very efficient. It is very efficient. But unfortunately, it does come with a carbon cost. Okay? Until we address that, which we can do later. Home improvement measures. Track down and eliminate your draft. Check your windows, external and your fireplaces and stoves. We'll get onto fireplaces and stoves in a minute. Especially fireplaces, because they're an issue. It might seem a bit weird. You might just light a joss stick in your house, literally. Okay. The kids aren't around, but light a joss stick in your house and see does the smoke move around your house. If it's moving around your house, you've got a problem. Find out where the problem is and try and solve it. You can save an awful lot. Check your insulation in your attic. You probably had insulation put in your attic. A lot of people have insulation put in their attic maybe 15 years ago when it was all the thing. One layer of insulation, that's grand. And in the meantime, you've got the pianos up there now, there's the old couch and boxes of books. That's not going to work. You need to check the insulation levels in your attic, double what's there, and take stuff from it off on top of it. Check your boiler and stove. This is really something that we need to do, and that'll help. Switch to more efficient appliances if you can, and lower temperature settings. Just turn things down a bit. It's like, you know, this room is not cold, but it's probably only about 18 degrees. You know, we tend to set it at 22 when we don't need it, and we'll walk around in our t-shirts when we don't necessarily need to. Okay, and don't use standby devices. Turn them off, like, you know. So when you're upgrading your home, it's always what's called fabric first, and that doesn't mean wearing a woolly jumper. That actually means looking at the fabric of the building. How is your building made? Okay, so look at how your building is made and how much heat it's losing out from the fabric of the building before you install anything new. Like, oh, I know it, I've heard that heat pumps are great, let's get one of them in. You try and, unless if you're rich enough to pay for it yourself, it's no use to you if you haven't done the fabric first. So insulate your building, insulate and mind your air tightness. Remember the way your granny used to always complain about the drafts? Well, your granny was always right. Insulate your building and air tightness. That's step point number one. And the second point is insulate and air tight your building, right? So this is a sample home. You'll notice these figures here are real figures from Inishturk. This, thankfully, is nobody's house here, right? This is a fake house. It's a real house, but it's like it's not from Inishturk. It's just to show you what a house is often like. Detached house, standard house in Blackpool and Cashel. So the BER rating, we all know what they are, I suppose. It goes from really poor up to A1, which is brilliant, but G, oops, not good at all. The energy efficiency is measured in units of electricity, or units of energy in this case, kilowatt hours. That's a unit of, you know what you pay for? You pay in your electricity bill. How many units did I use? I used, 200 units this billing period. Well, they're kilowatt hours. That's what they actually are called. So how many kilowatt hours do you use per metre squared in your house? If you're up at 527, that is very, very poor. This is how much carbon it produces a year. The heat loss indicator is important as well. It tells you how much you're losing. You must get that figure down. You must get that figure down, because that's the amount of heat that's gone out of the house, okay? And this is the 11,000 quid, right? Now this is the issue here. That 11,000 quid is not like an actual, there's very few people who are just shoveling 11,000 quid into a bag and giving it to the electricity company. What that's based on is, if your home was heated to the level that it would normally be, 20 degrees all year round, that's what this house would have to spend on power. So if you're wandering around your house and it's freezing all the time, well, you might probably not spending 11,000 quid, but who wants that? That's not healthy. It's damp, bad for the fabric of the building, and it's bad for you. So that's where these costs come from. What would be the cost to have a normal, healthy life in the house? So the upgrades are, the first upgrade that was recommended was upgrade. Now this is the real house. This house is in Inishturk, but we won't say who it is. Mary Elena. It's upgrade the insulation of the attic, put in some roof insulation in it, internal insulation, there are boards that you put inside your building, external insulation with insulated block, which is great too, change the single glazed windows, and install a control ventilation. In other words, that you regulate that the air, you're not leaving the windows open to air the house all the time. There's a natural change. Then you've got the secondary heating system, which is, in other words, that they have oil radiators in the house, but they also have a cooker, a range cooker. So the recommendation was to remove that. They would save that amount of money just by these measures. Okay? So they're not insubstantial, but later on, or we might be talking to you about the grants that are available. There are grants available to make that worthwhile. But that brings you up to a D1, which is still not marvellous, but you still saved yourself a chunk of change. Then you install an air-to-water heat pump, and that's suddenly, all of a sudden, you now have what's called a P1S, which is as comfortable and as healthy as you'd like. You also have a new house, which is the thing that everybody forgets. That not only did you end up with saving yourself money in the long run, but your house now will last 100 years. It looks brilliant, right? You've effectively refurbished your entire house. That's 100 years. And another thing, your house is now probably worth about twice as much as it was before you started. So remember that. Your mortgage provider, I don't know if you have mortgages, I certainly do. But the fact that I have a B2 home, I went to my mortgage provider and I said, any chance? And they said, of course, you've got a B2 home, so we'll give you a green mortgage. And that saves us about about 20% of our mortgage repayments every month, or every month. Yeah, that's a lot of cash now. Okay, so remember that too. People tend not to build that into the cost effectiveness of the thing. And then the PV panels bring you up to an A2. PV panels, the way to go nowadays, honestly, with the new with the feed-in tariff that you get, it's not exactly feed-in tariff. It's effectively is you pay for the electricity that you don't use that goes into the grid. You're not paying one for one, but it's you're still paying a considerable amount. So it's now looking like it's a definite thing for everybody to do in their house. If you can install the PV panels. In this house, it was 6 PV panels. It could accommodate the real one, the Inishturk one. It was the equivalent of planting 1,000 trees. Now 1,000 trees is about, it's close enough to a hectare of trees. It's a lot of trees. And it saves a massive amount. The estimated payback is 7 years. That's roughly speaking, what it would cost. Now every house is going to be different, so that your contractors will say, well, it's Inishturk, isn't it? Like, you know, so we have the Inishturk premium, you know, and you kind of go, well, so it could be higher, it could be lower. Maybe your house is bigger than the house that I've just quoted. Maybe it's just configured slightly, so it might be a bit more. But that house estimated, that's not that's an actual contractor's figure for a contractor operating in Galway County, does business in the west of Ireland. So that's a real figure, okay? Now, it mightn't be yours, but the 7-year payback is very achievable. 7 years for a brand new house, 7 years payback. That's astonishing. That's astonishing. So, we'll talk about how we can achieve, how that can be achieved on a community level in Inishturk. So, oh yeah, we do have this. We sampled 10 homes that the people were kind enough in Galway to allow us to actually publish their houses, so that there are pictures of their houses. They're rural houses, so they're like houses here, and they are. You could recognise your own house in amongst them, and kind of go, oh, it's about the same size as mine. It's about the same kind of condition, and they're costed samples. Okay. Now the next slide is to say that the Inishturk homeowners were given the act. The people whose homes we survey were given their own upgrade reports. Okay, and then it's up to a certain amount of negotiation with the contractors who will be willing to do the work here as to exactly how much that's going to cost and how that can be achieved. But I would be hopeful. I would be hopeful of good news on that. So if you were to upgrade, okay, these are the current BER ones, and as you took that step, okay, this would be the potential that if you upgraded everybody to a B2, this is what the island would end up with, 410,000 emissions saved. That's achievable, but it's hugely impressive. And that's every year. Every year that amount of carbon is being saved. And that potential energy saving cost is made 160,000. Okay? Now it mightn't work out exactly that, because as I said, the BER system isn't precisely that. It could be that you know, it could be slightly less than that, but the payback period will be about right. The average cost for energy, we averaged out across all the homes, and I know it's, look, I'm just trying to give you a ballpark figure on this. The average cost for energy was, for all homes post retrofit, at 6 quid a metre squared, okay, is what we ended up with, okay? So, oh yeah, that was me just highlighting that. Big carbon saving. That's 30,000 trees planted on Inishturk, but not planted in Inishturk elsewhere. You can plant the trees as well, then you'd be well in. So the cost savings approach to any energy retrofits is required. Everybody's got to make a pound, and everybody's got to charge for the work that they do. That's totally reasonable, okay? But this is an unusual environment in that you're not connected to the mainland by road, and that, let's say, the working conditions on Inishturk are not what you would find in Lewisburg, okay? That the road conditions, the kind of vehicles that are required to move construction equipment around, the accommodation that's possibly required. We know what's happened. Alina, you'll tell us all about it. But retrofitting the homes on an individual basis may be problematic. In other words, if I was to go on my Sweeney to a one-stop shop and ask them, can you look at this? There's a number of answers I could get, but one of them is probably going to be, oh, that's going to cost, right? What about the premium? So that's going to be an issue. The contractor specialist may not even be very quick to tender. I go, well, there's so much more easier fish to fry in Westport. For so much more cheaper, easier fish to fry in Westport. Coming out here is going to be a hassle. What are we going to do about that? So what we recommend then is achieving that through grouped or batched applications. That's what they did on Inishturk, which was they came together 10 houses at a time, because Inishturk's bigger. 10 houses at a time, went in and they achieved it. Contractor came out, did 10 houses at a go. Was worth their while doing it. Okay? Oh, hang on. Right. The thing is that there are contractors who are willing to work in Inishturk. You know their names. Okay? And so that if you have a established relationship, especially contractors so they've been experienced, they're not dealing with the fresh thing. So therefore, it would be reasonable to go and say, there's 10. This is quite like what Mel Negrina, what's it called? The Mel, your PV thing. Solar Mel, sorry, Mel Negrina. Okay, excuse me. Anyway, so look at, you're not Connemara, it's okay. So it's what you're doing. Batching the purchase and batching the contract makes it more attractive. You can't guarantee that you're going to get bargain basement on this, but you are going to get contractors who are willing to say, oh yeah, I could do 5 houses in Inishturk in a go. That's possible, you know. And it's worth my while shifting my equipment over here for 5 houses, where it's not really worth our while doing one when there's Westport. So, transport efficiency, active travel in Inishturk. We have to talk about active travel because it's really important. It's good for everything, in every way. It's good for your body and it's good for the environment. But let's face it, we're not going to be cycling around too much, are we? Electric bikes, though, have been trialled elsewhere. Okay, I was participating in a trial of electric bikes on Rathlin Island. Rathlin Island, bigger, but similar terrain to Inishturk. When the road is finished, it'll be very, very similar. Okay, so electric bikes are feasible. They have been used in Rathlin Island. It is potential. Okay, so that could be a possibility for a trial of electric bikes. You could bring that into use. Just look at it as an idea. It's a nice idea. It could be possible. Okay, if the SEC reached out to the local authority, who knows? They may be in this room. And tourist bicycle hire companies, there could be a possibility of having a go of it and perhaps trialing something. And if it doesn't work, well then it doesn't work. You've proven that it didn't work. But if it does work, happy days. Okay, so the Rathlin Island project was successful. And don't forget there are second-hand electric bikes on the market. Transport emissions from cars. You all know that what the problem is going to be. A more focused solution, so it's very different from anywhere else. Okay, there are small diesel saloons there are small saloon type cars on the island, but it's about 50-50, you know, because you need everybody. There are BEV alternatives, battery electric vehicles. There are alternatives to them. The distances are very, very short. So second-hand options are a possibility. That's what they did in Inishturk. They bought second-hand ones because they're only driving 12 kilometres. You wouldn't be driving 12 kilometres a day here, but you'd be only driving 12 kilometres in Inishturk. Maybe 24, if they're in yacht. So you could get the really, really end-of-lifest car you could get, EV car. They're not expensive, okay? But they are still very functional, and that would help. But now the big elephant in the room is the SUV, because the terrain is so rough and people use their SUVs. There's farming use, there's fishing use, there's construction use. People have to use SUVs. So really good rough road battery electric vehicles, they're not even really out yet. And when they do come out, they'll be all new and they cost a fortune. What are you going to do? It's not possible. It's not feasible. Okay. So we did look into investigating this thing called switching from diesel to HVO on a trial basis. So it could be trialled here, okay? And that trial isn't like, oh, we have to get in a special vehicle. Sorry, hang on, let's skip that thing. Yeah, what is HVO first before we go anywhere? Okay, it's called hydro-treated vegetable oil. Basically, the maths of it is that you mix hydrogen. You basically treat fatty fuel oils with hydrogen in such a way to create a diesel replacement. So it's reusable diesel from treating the oil. It's very, very high quality, like super high quality, lower emission fuel. It's a direct replacement for diesel. You put it straight in your current existing diesel engine, and it works like a charm. Do I say that it lasts longer? Yes, I do. It lasts longer, 10 times longer than diesel, because it just doesn't evaporate. Okay, you can store it and use it. It's perfect. Okay. They will say 90% of diesel emissions. I think it's fair to say would be 40% of diesel emissions, okay? Scientific studies are closer to 40% than 90%, but it's still a lot. It's still a lot. So these are the guys who provide it in Ireland. I don't work for any of them. I don't even know them, okay? But I don't suggest that anybody, it's a stopgap towards electric SUVs. Electric SUVs will come in. Okay, and they will have more benefits just than moving around. They'll have other benefits that we can talk about later, but these could be seen as a stopgap, okay, to get you into a situation where there is a second-hand market in SUVs in which you will be able to buy. Otherwise, you're not spending 40 grand on an SUV, electric SUV. Okay, so they're perfect for, so they're slightly more expensive, okay, but again, the collectivization approach could be very valuable. The cost of switching fuels could be minimised if you were to reach out and create a project with one of the suppliers. Okay? I think I said there. I don't say there, but I should say there. But of course, you keep your existing supplier. You get your existing supplier to bring in the HVO, because that arrangement is, you're not going to create that yourself. You're not going to discover a new job as a HVO distributor. So let that person do it instead. Moving on to the micro PV, this is something you can do for your home. Again, your home. I won't go into it in great detail because Jim has chapter and verse about it. But roughly speaking, a 2 kilowatt PV system requires about 7 or 8 panels on your roof. With the new panels that they have, 400 watt panels, takes about 15 square meters. In the in this area, if you had 2K on your roof, it's about 1,848 you'll generate across the year, which is quite a bit of power. Okay? Now, if you pay 28 cents, who pays 28 cents? But if you did, okay, it could save you 258 quid a year having solar panels on your roof. That's not bad. So, you also get a payback into the grid as such. Now, your grid is a local grid, but it doesn't matter because it's not done. It's done through your energy provider that you currently have. They have to give you a rebate for anything that you give back to them. Okay, so let's say it's 21 cents. There are more cents than that. People get more than 21 cents. But that's electric iron price. That's 194 quid sold to the grid. That's not bad. So you're using 50% of it is what I've calculated, and you're selling back the other 50%. That's the price you get. There are grants up to a maximum of 2,400 to the SEI. The payback would be 6 grand cost, roughly speaking. Sorry, Seamus. Look, that's a rough figure. Okay, let's say you get 2.5 grand. You add your savings together and your rebate together, that gives you a 7-year payback on something that lasts you 22, 25 years. You're in, you know. There is the SEI solar electricity calculator. You can play with that and use your own house as an example. It doesn't give you Inishturk, it gives you Mayo, but it's still good. Okay, in the community sector we did a study on the church, the school and this building here. So we got a list of recommended actions that could be carried out for this building here. And this gives you the sort of scale that's possible. So with these actions, this would be the total energy saving out of the cost of the action. That's very, very good. Okay, that's very, very good as a potential saving. Okay, we're already on board, so it's already started. It's already started with the move over to renewable energy. Okay, and it's having a brilliant effect already. So it is very achievable. Therefore, there is a contractor who's willing to come out here and install solar panels. You know that for a start. And the second is that these are practical and usable in this environment. So when people say, Jesus, it's fierce dark out here, you go, fine, it's fierce dark out here, but it's never so dark that you won't get power out of it. Okay, so it is extremely feasible for everybody to do, and it's certainly, when taken in conjunction with all the other measures, it's absolutely something to do. In the fishing, we went overall, the food sector it's an excellent sustainable resource, and it's managed extremely well by our fishermen, most of the time, but fishers. But VIM recommends that there are these things coming down the track. We want to reduce consumer demand, there's an increased consumer demand for low carbon products and increasing fuel costs. How can we get away from that? So zero emission BE vessels, in other words battery electric boats, okay, they are not ready yet, nor are the hydrogen ones ready yet. Okay, not ready. Give 5 years of development for them to be ready. So that's not a feasible one within the lifestyle scale of this. But short-term options, and the biodiesel has a moderate, okay, and you could potentially add it to the diesel. HVO has seen 100% drop-in option, so you can use the HVO. Now the reason I'm going bang on about the HVO, if you add the diesel for driving in the SUVs and the tractors to the diesel that's in the fishing boats, now you're talking about a scale of use that possibly is attractive to HVO supplier. It is sold in Ireland, so the advice is to engage with current suppliers to find an intermediary who is bringing HVO. So okay, this is the energy consumption that you have post-works. All the oil would go, gone. The coal would drop down to that nice cosy bit there in a stove. So you'd still have a stove in your house for romantic evenings. So that's okay. We're not telling you not to have any of that. That's a good idea. It's perfectly reasonable. But you're not heating your house with it. It's just for the look of the house. Look at it. The diesel could go with the HVO. The HVO goes up. The diesel dies, you see, that's where the HVO comes there, okay? So the dark green is what's now, okay? What doesn't change much is the electricity, because as you move over to heat pumps, you start to use more of the electricity, okay? So the oil goes, but the electricity stays more or less the same. So we still have an issue with the electricity, okay? So where are we going to get the electricity from? There's different ways you can get it from. You'll all be, sorry, that included, by the way, the installation of the micro PV on everybody's houses. So we're looking for something else. So, wind. I will just run through this quickly. But it's an important thing to recognise. This is a very windy spot. Okay? That's what that means. Alright? So there's a perfectly good resource level. So a community level, a 100 wind turbine would produce 350 kilowatt hours per year, which is, it would give it much cheaper potentially, and that's what it would look like. So this is the mast, the phone mast, okay? The height of the phone mast, 17.5 meters. This is the height of a 100 kilowatt turbine. So for discussion, we can have that chat later, okay? But I mean, it's very viable. It would mean that those diesel generators then become standby power, okay? So it's an option. It's what there's no off-grid, so it would require a partnership with ESB, obviously. And the ESB are looking at EVs as backup storage for grid, so they may be interested in that element of it as well. It's not in the county plan, by the way, to have a wind turbine on Inishturk. But the communications mast was passed because there was an appetite for good communication signals, so that people supported it. because they were going to get a benefit of it. So it's a question of whether the public benefit from the electricity, appetite for the electricity is there. What about PV? This is PV here, right? So this is kind of like a map of what the PV resource is in Ireland. Down here, it's good, okay? Over in Clare, it's pretty good too. It's great in Connemara. It's it's not huge here, but it's enough. Solar PV electricity is produced from panels. The resource is okay in Inishturk, it's reasonably good. So for example, down there in the best is 1,096 kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed per year, okay? Forget that figure, but just compared to, there's a community PV project in Claremorris. That's what they're getting, their radiation values, 894, which is a lot less than 1,096. So what would Inishturk get? 914. Well, you're better than Claremorris. And if it's worth the while in Claremorris, it's possibly worth the while here too. Okay? It's electricity produced from solar panels. What? Oh yes. So the 500 kilowatt, if you have 500 kilowatts, which is not massive, okay? 500 kilowatt solar farm at a suitable size in Inishturk would produce 457,000, which is 100% of the electricity the island needs. Now, does it produce it when the island needs it? So some backup will have to be maintained, but it is a sizable amount. Okay. Now you're not sending it to the grid in the same way that Claremorris is. 500 kilowatts is a hectare. Sure, a hectare is nothing. Like hectare is nothing. Okay. And ground mounted means that it's raised off the ground to the extent that it's pointing towards the south in the right direction. There are sites available that look south that have the right slope. This is a suitable environment for them, and all of the biodiversity that exists in that location would still be there. In fact, you could graze your sheep under them, so that wouldn't be a problem either. So it would produce, the cost per unit of electricity would be only 15 cents per kilowatt hour. But again, the ESB would have to be involved because you're not exporting to the grid. It would have to be a partnership. So this is the strategy. I'm nearly finished. This is a step-by-step how you could get there. I think this is in the leaflet. Step-by-step how you could get there. But essentially, you would reach a figure, and remember, here's the smart maths guy. If you could remember that 618,000 kilograms of carbon, that's what you would save by progressing here. Just the carbon, which is more or less what we had at the beginning. So you'd be carbon neutral. And you haven't done anything crazy. The big step is deciding on whether it's the wind or the PV. That's fine. But that's it. They're both practical. It's a question of appetite. As I said, you're in an unusual situation. You're not talking about funding a generation project here. Because if you think about it, the ESB would be the ones to do that. It's a question of asking them to do it. Convincing them that this is something that is a good idea to achieve carbon neutrality. We would like this to happen. If you did it, you'd save yourself a ton of money on diesel. The ESB would. We'd be sustainable. You might give us a few quid, give us a bit off our bills as well. But you're the guys who would do it. You're saving the money. But they can't do that unless you guys agree with it. So it's either keep the diesel generators as they are, that's happy, that's grand, works perfectly, or these are sustainable opportunities. That's effectively what the meat and potatoes of this is. But you are reducing down as much as possible. Not enormous work, so it's 25% of the homes of G to C3 homes, so you're leaving the ones that are already very good. Anybody who's a B3, you can leave them as they are, but you're going from G to C3 up as possible. A B3 home should probably install the micro panels on their roof because they're available for it. They can also install a heat pump. But in terms of the heavy lifting retrofits, your 2 community buildings a year, that would be part of a potential, what used to be called Better Energies Communities Award, which Orla is going to tell me it's called. It's not called BEC anymore, it's called
Community Energy Grants,
CEG, Community Energy Grants. They are the kind of projects that you can collectivise, ball up the projects, 5 houses, 2 community buildings 1 year, another 5 houses, another 2 community buildings next year, and then the remaining 10 houses. 3 years, job's done, you have saved yourself a chunk of change and reduced your carbon footprint very considerably and got yourselves ready for full electrification. And then, that's why this is here. Whatever your renewable electrical system is that you go for, if you want to, that's when it comes in year 3. Now there's a certain kind of planning and other stuff has to go there too, but that's when that comes in. As I said, you're not like the Inishturk people or the Inishturk people. It's not like, it's the ESB will be doing this. They just need to be asked. It makes perfect sense to them, but they can't do it themselves. The ESB is not going to tell you, we're sticking a wind turbine up there beside that communications mast. They're not going to say that because that'd be crazy. So, but if you ask for it and sized it appropriately and went for the PV, that would be it. And they're trying to reduce the diesel use in the SUV fleet, in waiting for the battery electric SUV second-hand market to kick off, and then trying to replace the diesel from the both. Somebody maybe starts off with 20%, or everybody starts off with 20% HVO and brings up to 100 when they're safe, when they're happy with it, or somebody's brave and goes, I'll go for the 100%. Okay, so that's the potential savings. In other words, this island could be carbon neutral, and probably the only island I can say this about by 2029. Most islands wouldn't be able to get there. Yous could though, you know. And if you brought in the ferry company and they start using HVO, bang, they're in. So you really have made a big thing. So it's definitely it's definitely there for you, and it's an unusual situation that you're in. And ironically, I remember crying when they took the they took the generator out of Inishturk and they put in the mainline connection to the mainland. Just said, we're goosed. We don't have control anymore. The renewable energy is going to say it's going to be difficult for us. We're never going to get there. You guys don't have that. I know it was awkward and you didn't like it not being connected to the mainland, but you may have jumped over 40 years and achieve 2040 vision when everybody else is still flipping around in 2015. And that could be achieved very, very quickly. So that's where your CO2 emissions would go down to 4%, which is perfectly, that's fantastic. So I've said thanks a million for that. You can get the documents there. Marilena can send them around, or you can contact me there. And I'm around to answer questions, but I think probably I've spoken enough, and that there's other people who need to speak and have probably nicer things to say than me.